know where you come from, or just who has the misfortune of being responsible for your existence, but you are a lying, manipulative, and cruel person, and the fact that you are only 16 years old makes me feel more sorry for you than any of the people in this room whose lives you're so intent on destroying. You're pathetic.
I mean, your favorite pastime is making my life a living hell. That's not what I do. I play such a crucial role in this little circle, and you guys are just too unimaginative to notice. I'm the girl everyone loves to hate. I'm the scapegoat. I'm the one you can take out all your anger and aggression on and never lose a moment's sleep over. You have it mixed up, Abby. You trash us. You're mean. Well, being sweet is boring. I don't have family lives like you guys. My mom isn't a lunatic. My dad isn't in prison. I'm not the prodigal daughter from New York. My parents' divorce is boring. My house is boring. There's no intrigue, no drama. So you know what? I create drama. And I think it's a valid extracurricular activity.
Cult Boyfriend here, back to talk about Dawson's Creek. Again, second season. Again, the second season. I actually have another video, my very first Dawson's Creek focused video called Dawson's Creek Wants to Gaslight You, was largely about this season and largely about my favorite character of the entire show, Abby Morgan. And yeah, this video is going to be largely about Abby, but before we get to her, let me talk about a few things that I should probably just at least touch upon. Incredibly important season of the show. We are introduced to the McPhees, Andy and Jack, and Jack McPhee has begins one of the most significant character arcs in American television. His character Jack was an incredibly important character in queer television history, in cinema history, in teen media, and we get to see the beginning of his arc here. And Kerr Smith probably lays down the best performance of the season, and this is coming from someone who would, do anything for my Lord and Savior Monica Keena, who played Abby Morgan. Kerr Smith, there's no denying the unexpected tenderness, pathos, intensity, and charm that he brought to Jack McPhee. And his storyline throughout the entirety of Dawson's Creek is mammoth in its influence and importance, but it's great to see it started so well, see it begun so well here in season 2. Jack was really put through a lot of depth already, just so much depth. I do find it kind of funny, and they do talk about this later on in Dawson's Creek. I think in the last season, they're like, Jack, remember when you were into art and you were like a weird kind of neurotic artsy kid? Because they of course turn him into like some football stud and then some drunken frat boy. They kind of turn him into the antithesis of what season 2 Jack McPhee was. But this show is, of course, obsessed with its own self-reference, so they bring that up later on as well. And while we're on the topic of the McPhees, Meredith Monroe is extraordinary here as Andy. I love Andy. Incredibly underrated character. I love Andy. She's great. She's one of the highlights of this season, and this season is... it's hard to say. I think it's my favorite season, but mostly, or primarily because of Abby Morgan and some of the stuff with Andy. Also some of the conversations that Dawson has about his film Creek days. That's when the show... So season 1 laid down the groundwork, the foundation, the postmodern sentimentalism that Kevin Williamson, our own Frank Capra of Capeside, was seeking to do with Dawson's Creek, kind of a punished cinephile, optimistic love story, but still with a decent amount of cynicism. Season 2, Dawson's Creek takes no time to deconstruct itself. Season 2 is a deconstruction of Dawson's Creek deconstructing itself almost directly out the gate. And Mrs. Kennedy, played remarkably well by Machen Amick, offers... No one can criticize Dawson's Creek better than Dawson's Creek. Saying that his show is, or his film Creek Days, but they're really talking about Dawson's Creek, the television show, since Creek Days is a romanticized version of Dawson's own life. Like, so it is like season 1 of Dawson's Creek, essentially. It's like she's watching season 1 of Dawson's Creek and saying that that it's basically a bunch of kids who talk too much, who overanalyze their lives, that there's no emotion, that nothing is gripping about it, nothing is truthful about it, and that they've seen it all before. This kind of postmodern trend is nauseating, and she says, we've seen this all before, to the point that this borders on plagiarism. Dawson's Creek knows how to roast itself, for sure, but I'm delaying the inevitable here. I love these meta self-referential talks about Creek Days, about art, about all of these things. I'm a sucker for them, sure, but I'm delaying the inevitable. This is Season Abby. This is Abby Morgan's season, and Abby is a delightful character. Monica Keena is Nancy Drew from hell, the ridiculously cute, psychopathic brunette of my wildest teenage dreams. This mean girl to really end all mean girls. She was fantastic. I'm going to link the video that I mentioned earlier called Dawson's Creek is Trying to Gaslight You, because I really dive into her character there. But since she's one of my favorite characters in all of media, there's certainly a lot more I can say about Abby. Abby gets me. Abby absolutely gets me. And Abby gets herself. Dawson's Creek is a show that is increasingly and intensely self-aware, and Abby Morgan is incredibly aware of her function within this group. I mean, imagine this show without Abby Morgan. Nothing. It would honestly be what Mrs. Kennedy was saying that it was. It would be just a terribly saccharine tale of white people problems, at its most basic. Abby Morgan is this like postmodern hurricane of plot devices for every character. At her funeral, Andy says that she made me a stronger person. She made every single archetype and character on this show stronger people by refusing something of theirs, by limiting their happiness, by going out of her way to try to ruin them. She served such an important function on the show, and no one was able to realize it. The writers most certainly realized this. That's why we would get a Drew Valentine. Even the characters called a male Abby Morgan later on in the show, someone to occupy this role that Abby so perfectly occupied. And season 2 insists on Abby so much. So much. She was every reason why this season moved at all. She's every reason why this season worked. Because she was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Monica Keena killed this role, and Abby Morgan is the reason I love Dawson's Creek as much as I do. Without her involvement in the first 2 seasons, I don't know if I would have kept watching. I mean, season 2 is so addictive. I'm trying to space out these Dawson's Creek closer look back videos, but I watch one episode of Dawson's Creek season 2, I watch another one, and I just keep watching more and more. It's such an addictive season, and it's all because of Abby. Once Abby dies, momentum is certainly lost, especially in the next episode with what happens with Andy. I love Andy's arc, too. Andy's like almost the best reason to keep watching this season after Abby dies. And Abby died she was apparently begging Kevin Williamson to kill her off. She wanted to pursue different kinds of roles, or as she told Kevin Williamson, she had a boyfriend up in New York and she was sick of filming in Wilmington, North Carolina, and wanted to be killed off so she could just get the hell out of North Carolina, which actually sounds like a pretty impulsively Abby decision as well. So they came up with this. And what's so intriguing about her death as well, I bring this up in the other video, but I like that one of her very last lines are, I don't think I'll ever be happy. I'll always not want to be where I am. I just don't want to be a cliche or boring. And then she dies a boring cliche. Her worst fear. Wow. Wow. That's intense. That's intense for this kind of postmodern diatribe. And then the episode that follows, Rest in Peace, with her funeral. I've never seen an episode of a show where a group of characters are having so much inner turmoil, or are so confused over what they're supposed to be feeling because none of them liked her. They all actually seem pretty relieved that she's dead, with the obvious exception of Jen and, by the end of the episode, Andy. Heck, Andy goes through her diary, her personal belongings in her room, trying to find some sort of spark, some sort of sentimental, positive spark inside of her so that she could write her eulogy with some sort of truthful passion. And she just finds more and more mean-spirited comments in her diary. Like, there's just more reasons to hate Abby. Like, Pacey just doesn't care at all, and Dawson and Joey even laugh about how they don't care that she's dead. Jen does not take it well, because Jen understood, because Jen is a part of this function as well. Jen is a wild card of the group, and Abby was the ultimate unexpected wild card. You never knew it was going to happen in an Abby Morgan episode. High Risk Behavior, that's probably one of the best episodes of Dawson's Creek ever. In fact, I say that so confidently, I'm gonna look it up right now, make sure it's called High Risk Behavior, so I don't have to, like, re-record this part. That would be so annoying to me. No? Oh, that's not it. Sex, She Wrote. Obviously, it's called Sex, She Wrote. High Risk Behavior. I'm sure that she was fine in that one, too. But Sex, She Wrote is the one where Abby is trying to figure out who left this note about sex in the class. So one of our main couples are having sex with each other. That's such an entertaining episode, and that's where she's dubbed the Nancy Drew from Hell. But that's also such an incredible moment. One of my favorite moments of the entire show is the bookends of this episode, where she's confronted by the teacher at the beginning of the episode. She gives him, like, a terrible lie, and he thinks she's an idiot. And at the end of the episode, the same teacher confronts her again, and she does something surprising. She decides not to humiliate her classmates, because she obviously finds out that Andy and Pacey had slept with each other. And she goes on this amazing speech in which she ends with my favorite line on all of Dawson's Creek. Oh, and for the record, integrity is a tired notion last seen in the late 70s. Oh, dude. Fuck yeah, Abby. So much heart, so much intensity to that performance. That Abby is probably the ultimate postmodern brat. Kevin Williamson was good at writing postmodern brats, like Jill in Scream 4. Abby has a bit of her inside of her. Abby is a postmodern brat. These are the brats of postmodernism. It's Abby. Reap what you sow. I love it. But Jen, yeah. Jen was really on a spiral for this entire season. She definitely, I think Michelle Williams, as I've said before, gives the best performance out of everybody within the cast, like, overall, for Dawson's Creek. And oh my god, like, in season 2, she was spiraling, then she was back, and then she was spiraling even further, and then she was back, and then Abby dies, and she spirals even further, and then comes back. It must have been so exhausting to portray Jen Lindley. It really must have been. But Michelle is doing it incredibly well. We're actually watching Michelle become a phenomenal actress in real time. By season 3, she's on point. Every line is on point and really creative and full of interesting decisions. Absolutely, Michelle Williams is one of the most fun things to watch as this show progresses. Her abilities progress too. It's wild. It's a wild thing. Once Abby Morgan dies, and trust me, Abby Morgan has my entire dang heart. Gosh, that's why it's so difficult for me to say this is my favorite season, because I don't like what it insists upon in the end. I don't care. The dads of Dawson's Creek are fucking boring. At least Dawson's dad is, like, entertainingly cringe. And, I feel for Dawson's dad sometimes. But, I mean, the ending of season 2, I think Joey's dad is such a fucking boring character. I think those are the incredibly boring plot threads. I hate that he's what we climax with in this fucking season. Same with Pacey's dad. I think these are incredibly boring stories. I really do. Season 1 insisted strongly on Joey's dad as well at the end of its season. I don't know why we're ramping up to these really, really boring, frail, and disappointing father figures. I don't know why. I don't know if I'm alone in this, but the Joey's dad shit is just such a fucking bore. Such a fucking bore, I swear to God. And it's not saying anything against the performances. The gentleman who played Joey's father is wonderful. Wonderful, great. And of course, Katie Holmes, I mean, perfect. Take me away. Katie Holmes is amazing as Joey, and Joey is an amazing character. It's just the Joey's dad shit I don't fucking care about. Same with Pacey's dad. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a shit. This season, like, peaked at episode 18 and 19, and then it went on for a couple more episodes. Whatever. It's fine. I think seasons 2 and seasons 3 are probably the best, but I'll let you know. This rewatch has been illuminating in a lot of different ways. I can't get over Abby Morgan. I can't rationalize how great this character is. Like I can't comprehend the enormity of her character, like how much she means to me. It's wild. I love her character. One of the most entertaining people I've ever watched. One of the most entertaining characters I've ever seen on a television show. Abby Morgan. Forever. Love her. I absolutely love her to death. This season is so incredible. This season's absolutely phenomenal. It improves on season 1 in every possible way. This takes postmodern art to a whole other level. This takes popular art to a whole nother level. It takes pop culture with it. This takes postmodern art to uncharted territories. I'd also be a fool not to mention Rachel Lee Cook was awesome on this show. A great guest star. Rachel Lee Cook. What 90s kid did not want to... You know what? I'll leave it at that. the 90s girl of everyone's dream, Rachel Lee Cook. It was amazing to see her. She was great. Absolutely great. Some of this language is pretty verbose. She handled it incredibly well. Great performance. I wish we got to see a little bit more of her character, actually. Rachel Lee Cook, amazing. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to one person. Abby Morgan. Okay, you know what? Screw it. Chances are very, very few people are watching or listening this far into the video anyway. I love Abby Morgan so much, let me be real, because I was like Abby Morgan in high school. I created drama. Hell, I was like this in my early to mid 20s too. Like, I create drama. I get incredibly bored in social groups. I used to have this weird elitist mentality, and it came from nowhere. I thought that everyone around me was boring, so I deliberately tried to manipulate situations to make them more entertaining, more exciting, more cinematic, to get some life, some character out of anybody, some growth, some momentum. Everyone was just a walking trope. Everyone was just so full of just archetypal disbelief. I was exactly like Abby Morgan in high school. I mean, I was liked. Um, that's the primary difference. But I relate to her so much. I hated being where I was. No matter where I was, I hated being there. And I hated being there with the people I was with. I associated the people I was with the place that I was. So I hated them because they had to be boring because we were here. Like, we were here, so they had to be boring. They absolutely had to be. Or else why would they be here? And I was smarter than them, and I was more handsome. Or if they were more attractive than me, then it was some sort of flaw in them. Like, I relate to Abby a lot. You know, I've had a lot of personal growth, and I outgrew a lot of those selfish, narcissistic qualities, if not all of them entirely. I'm a pretty humble person now. The world can do that to you. The world can make you humbled. But Abby, watching her in this is how I was in high school. I hated high school. So I loved making a mockery out of it. I loved making my own preposterous soap opera out of high school, which is what Abby did. Like, I get Abby. You know, we like to see ourselves as the protagonists of everything, as the heroes or whatever, but we're not. We're not always, and the antagonists aren't always the villains. Sometimes they're just antagonizing. I was a pretty antagonizing teenager. I got bored a lot. Being sweet is really fucking boring. So to be real with you guys, at the very end of this video, I was a lot like Abby. And Monica Kina brought her to life in a way that I thought was unbelievable. And saw myself in her a lot. And, you know, helps that I have a crush on her, too. You know, I have a thing for narcissistic, psychopathic brunettes.
Now, Abigail, you're up. Is it possible, Miss Morgan, that you're going to surprise me with your assignment? Is it possible that you finally decided to do something good for yourself and apply a little integrity to your education?
I wouldn't want to disappoint you, Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
I didn't do it.
Whew.
And integrity, just for the record, is a tired notion last seen in the late 70s.
That is one of the best quotes from the entire show. Fuck yeah.
I'm sure a lack of integrity will make it easier to accept your F.
You're a fucking legend,
Just
Abby.
for the record.
One of the best characters
Next,
ever written.
Miss McPhee.
Performed perfectly by Monica Kina.
Thank you. Whatever.
You know you are.